Welcome back to the French Rugby Podcast with me, Tim Groves, and ex-Scotland international and adopted Frenchman, Johnny BT. We will be looking ahead to the French-dominated Champions Cup quarter-final clashes later on and having a chat with a South African who's hoping to play a big role in getting his side through to the semi-final and final again this year. But we should have a bit of a chat about the top 14 first, Johnny, because it's absolutely mad, isn't it, that with 2 rounds left, no one has guaranteed a place in the playoffs.
Nobody's got a clue, mate. Me the first. No, I was watching the other end of the table at the weekend. I was at Biarritz against Cast, but you're right. I mean, it was for Cast. I mean, they were absolutely delighted, as you can imagine. But Cast winning away from home, Racing winning away from home, Leon thumping them. The results, again, loads of things that you just couldn't have predicted that mean it really is going to go down to the wire. You've now effectively got 8 teams within probably the 6, the bottom load, the 6 are within one win of each other. So much to play for. 2 rounds of rugby left to play, but you can't predict. Again, we got half them wrong at the weekend, or I did anyway. Cheers, Tim. And it is just another crazy end to the top 14 season. And even once you've picked those 6, when they get there, who's going to win the thing? Again, it's so evenly split. Teams winning away from home, we just don't know. So an incredibly exciting end and some drama to follow, certainly.
We spoke last week about Toulon. 8 wins now from the last 10 games. This might be the biggest, though, away at Bordeaux.
Again, it's a fortress that hasn't been broken too many times at all. And for Toulon now, like we talked about them last week, there's a real possibility of qualification that even 5, 6, 7 weeks ago was mission impossible, absolutely ridiculous. You wouldn't have thought it, but as we just mentioned, the sort of the mentality, the different dynamics that go into psychology of rugby. It's a funny old game, especially over here in France. A few players back from injury, Frank Azema settles in, a game plan comes through, confidence comes back, and their tails are up. And it would be storybook stuff for them if they were to qualify at home this weekend to Po, and then their last game is away to Racing 92, which will be a cup final. And that's it. If they win that game and they get through, you just never know the confidence that will be pulsing through them now as a squad. If they can win that game away to Racing, you wouldn't bet against them winning the top 14. So again, it's been an incredible story. And Bordeaux, all of a sudden, they've led from the front the whole year with Montpellier, even with the comeback of Mathieu Jalibert, and that game just lacking ideas and a little bit stale, really bizarre after the way they performed the whole way through the season. Christophe Urios, our old mate, absolutely furious at the end of the game, as he normally is. But that's it. You've got 8 sides now, all duking it out for a chip in a chair. That's what we're saying in the top 14. You just never know. Any one of those 8 sides could go on and win this top 14. And it's going to be a crazy finish to the season.
You gave us the headline last week that Toulouse were going to miss out on the playoffs. I don't know whether you did that just for my benefit, but you did. They did the business at home to La Rochelle, though, didn't they?
Yeah, and that went down like a shit sandwich as well. So you actually had, at the end of that game, you had Ugo Mola on the mic, and he had to go everyone, like not us, obviously, because we're not that tight, but everyone at Canal Plus building had said the same type of thing. You know, might this be a stretch too far? Combining both competitions, can they back it up? The fatigue. And he came out and went through Canal Plus, every single one of their journalists that either writes in Rugby Rama, Midi Olympique, or presents on television. He was absolutely livid, but it's a difficult task, and it will be right to the end. And you actually had the head of rugby for Canal Plus had to come out with a statement and say, it's really bizarre that he doesn't like to be questioned. This is just normal questions from journalists. We're not having goes at anybody. But that was a game that they absolutely ground out. And I'm sure our guests will be able to give us a bit more insight into the ins and outs of the game and where it went wrong for La Rochelle. But a big win for Toulouse, especially going into this European weekend that we'll talk about a little bit further down the track, for confidence as well. Just to know they're there or thereabouts, they can still potentially do it, but it's going to be extremely hard.
And the guys at Canal Plus might have had it both barrels from Ugo Mola, but Ronan O'Gara had a bit to say for himself on the touchline as well again.
He seems to be developing a bit of a rep, and it doesn't matter the size. If it's Christophe Urios, if it's Ugo Mola, he's enjoying a bit of a chirp on the sidelines, and he enjoyed it when he played. He 100%, he did not stop talking to you the other side of the field. He was constantly chirping, and that's it. He hasn't changed as a coach. Still a competitor, still wants to lead from the front, and not afraid to back down. So interesting again to see the the sort of tit for tat on the touchline gave me another laugh. And again, she's one of the characters of the game. Love it.
Right, we will look ahead to the Champions Cup quarterfinals shortly, but it's about time we did our meter moment of the week. So what have you got for us, Johnny?
It comes from Toulon again this week, mate. I mean, what can you say? They're playing some amazing rugby. They had a really difficult start to the season. Last week, it was Gabin-Villiers. This weekend, the finishing of my old teammate from Bayonne, Emeric Luc, a youngster. Nobody knows too much about him in the wider world rugby public, but a finishing and a performance and a massive win in Bordeaux. He scored 2 this weekend, both individually brilliant in different ways. And the first was initiated by Baptiste Saran, who's come right back into form as well. A cheeky nudge over the top. And Luc gathers it, I don't know how, and he sells Jalibert, one of the most audacious dummies you'll see this year, and runs it under the post. But the vision, the speed off the mark, and the call, all exceptional. And he even managed the second where he took on Moefana on the edge, chipped over fullback, gathered himself and finished. But a huge win for Toulon, their confidence and their chances of making the top 6. So 2 ridiculously massive moments from Emeric Luc.
That was Johnny's meter moment of the week. And meter is the world's #1 wireless meat thermometer, recently making over 11 million cooks better with their game-changing app and completely wireless Bluetooth meat probe. You can use it on a barbecue, in the oven, or in a pan, and you can get hands on one at meter.com. Plus, we've upped the stakes, and you can now get 20% off any full price item instead of 10%. All you have to do is enter the code FrenchPod20 at checkout. That's FrenchPod20 instead of FrenchPod10, and you'll get 20% off any full price item at meter.com. Let's get our guest on now then, and we can have a chat with a man from the Western Cape in South Africa who's starring on the west coast of France in the top 14 nowadays. La Rochelle winger Dillyn Leyds joins us. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you guys doing?
We're good. Lots of positives to talk about, but let's get the disappointment out of the way first. Tough defeat at Toulouse at the weekend, and after losing to them in a couple of finals last year, opening day of the season as well, is that becoming a particular rivalry, you and them now, and one that you almost feel like you really own one very soon?
Yeah, I think it's definitely become a rivalry that I suppose we as a club pretty proud that we've created. Obviously, Toulouse is a well-known and well-respected club all over the world. So, you know, for us, we see it as our biggest game and a game that we love to play. But yeah, I think obviously the disappointment of losing to them in 2 finals last season, and then, like you said, losing at home first game of the season, and then this weekend's defeat is pretty tough to take. It's something that, you know, straight after the game, you know, Greg and Roman Sazi just said, you know, this has got to stop. We're a quality team and they're a quality outfit as well. But, you know, we know that we let that one slip on the weekend, especially, you know, after Monday's review. Suppose any team goes back on a Monday and you know, say, oh, guys, you know, we had the game. But I really felt like that we had the game on Saturday night, and it could have gone our way. But, you know, like in the review on Monday, there were certain things that we let ourselves down big time. And yeah, I think we know that was an important game and probably one we will look back on and say that we should have won.
And we were just chatting before about, Johnny was mentioning Hugo Moller had a bit to say after the game about people at Canal Plus and what they've been saying. Ronan O'Gara, the clip, has done the rounds on social media, having a bit to say to Hugo Moller on the touchline. And we know his history with Christophe Urios and being banned before this season. So just give us a sense of what Ronan O'Gara is like as a boss, because we know him very well in the British Isles. Obviously, he was super competitive. Johnny played against him. But is it just that he's so fiercely competitive that it sometimes spills over?
Yeah, 100%. You know, like we said off air, you know, he's a very passionate guy, and he knows that he's at the club for another little while, and you know, as a collective, we said, you know, this is our time, and this is, you know, during this period, this is the period that we want to go and create history at the club, you know, and he's at the forefront of it. He's a passionate man, and his want to win is so strong that it comes through, you know. And as a coach, I think for me personally, you don't get the coaches on the sideline in South Africa. So
you get them carrying the water, do you, in South Africa? No?
Or you get them carrying the water, you know? So I'm pretty sure Raj will put on the water boy bib soon and be running orders. But yeah, you know, I think that's just, it speaks volumes of the guy he is and the culture he's trying to create at the club. And you know, we're at the point now where he's sort of implemented his values on the players, and you know, we're at that point now where it's more becoming a player-driven thing, where Raj is taking a step back, and we've got great leaders. You know, Greg Aldred is a big part of that French squad who's gone on to do great things. You know, we've got Winnie Antonio, Victor Vito, TKB. You know, guys who've played in massive games and have won big trophies. So it's a great thing for us as a club and players to be involved in, where, you know, a group is becoming player driven, not to a point where we trying to overthrow the coach or anything like that, but to a point where we know it's our responsibility to go out and perform on the field. The coaches can give us the tools, but it's ultimately up to us, you know. And I think it's a great space to be in, and hopefully we can just push on from here. Obviously, it was disappointing on the weekend, but you know, if we can push on from here and go on to hopefully win something, you know, that this is the time when, you know, players take control.
And you mentioned the history that he and you are trying to create at La Rochelle and make the most of the sort of opportunities you've got at the moment. Am I right in saying that his intensity is at such a level that you were at a 1-year-old's birthday party a couple of years and the Champions Cup semi-final was on in the background and he was sort of saying, this will be us soon? Yeah,
we were. It was because, like, you know, sort of this time, if you're not in the Champions Cup, you have time off, you know. And I can't remember whose birthday it was. I'd mentioned this before, but like, I just remember we were watching the game and he's like, yeah, like, enjoy your time now, but like, you know, in a couple of seasons, you're not going to have this break because this will be us, you know. And that's, you know, that's exactly the type of guy he is. And we find ourselves in the position now. We were there last season as well. So it's great. And I think for the whole club, you know, everyone is like, the support we get here in La Rochelle is second to none. You know, like, I always thought playing rugby in Cape Town and playing for the Stormers, you know, the people love their rugby down there. South Africa in general, you know, they love their rugby. So the support we got as players at the Stormers was fantastic. And then coming here, you're just like, man, is this even real? Like, we came home after that Champions Cup final and it was like a late flight back from London, and we came to La Rochelle Airport. And I mean, it's not the biggest of airports. So we walked in and it was like 2 a.m. in the morning. And our manager was like, oh, just be ready. There's heaps of people outside. And we're like, come on, man, it's 2 a.m. Like, we just lost the final. Who's going to be waiting for us, you know? And as we walked out of the airport, there was just like hundreds of people singing and just coming up to us and saying, you know, thank you. Like, what you've done for our little town and our club is amazing. And like, I'm just thinking, like, man, as a player, you're already so disappointed. And then you've got these fans coming up to you, little kids waiting at 2 a.m. just to say thank you. And you're just like, this is crazy. It's like, it sort of puts like a more, like, it adds more to the disappointment, if I can say that, because you're like, oh, I haven't just let myself down or my club down, and my coach is like, I've let the people of La Rochelle down as well. But like, for them, it's just, oh, we were in a final. Thank you so much what you guys have done. And, you know, and I think that's why, as a club, we're so lucky to be in a position where we're still in 2 competitions and have a great chance of making it to the playoffs, you know. So for us, our biggest driving force is literally just coming back with a trophy to celebrate with this amazing supporters that we have. Yeah,
I think that comes down to the journey the club's been on. Like, when I first
100%,
arrived in France, that club was in Pro D2. They were well supported, but over time, the consistency that's gone into the performance end of the business, the on-field aligned with the business sense. And you mentioned the fans. You have some of the most passionate and effective,
100%.
like they're so effective, like they're an amazing bunch of fans. An incredible place to play a game of rugby. If you're a rugby fan listening to this and you're trying to get away with mates for a weekend or go and see a game in France, one of the times you should absolutely go and visit and take a game in is La Rochelle. And you mentioned trying to deliver silverware for them. You come so close. Again, Pro D2 was the last, but now on both fronts, you drop down to 7th because top 14 is such a hard competition to deliver in, and to compete in both competitions effectively and the European level is incredibly hard. We've seen Toulouse now drop down to 8th. You guys are 7th. So can you give us a little bit of an insight coming, you mentioned, from South Africa over to France, the difference in terms of the quality of competition, but also the sort of grind and how hard it is to compete both in the top 14 and in European rugby?
Yeah, like for me last season, like you come over to France and you obviously I spoke to players that were in France already that are known from back home, and they were just like, oh, it's long and it's tough, but it's good, like it will fly by. And then my first season last year, I was like, wow, this is really long, and it's a full-on grind, you know, like. So I think it's just the longevity of the competition. Like for us, we at the start of the season we were 1 from 5, I think.
Yeah.
And still at that time, in my mind, I'm thinking, damn, if this is Super Rugby, like that's our season done. Like, you know, cheers, make your plans for to go on holiday at the end of May because you're not seeing the playoffs. And now we string a couple of games together, get a good couple of wins. We back up to 3rd. We lose 2 games. We're down to 7th, and you're just like, what is going on? But I think that's like the kind of league the top 14 is. Like it's so competitive. You like if you look at us in Toulouse, like we were the finalists of both Europe and top 14 last year, and like honestly, we both sort of have had like up and down seasons, and now we're 2 games to go in the top 14, and we're not assured of a playoff spot. And it like you can see why this league attracts so many quality players, because this is the competition you want to be involved in.
And you mentioned that decision to move over to the top 14. I don't know if one of the guys you spoke to was Cheslin Colby, but you know him well from your days at the Stormers. I think
at the Stormers, yeah.
I think I'm right in saying you roomed with him for 4 years, was it?
At the start, so Chesy started about a season before me at the Stormers, and then once I joined, you know, we knew each other because we played each other at school as well, and played age group rugby against each other. So going to the Stormers, you know, we were roommates, and it was a great time because, you know, in Super Rugby tours you go away for 4 weeks, 2 weeks in Oz and 2 weeks in New Zealand, you know. So when he came over to Toulouse and he was going so well, and when I got the opportunity to come to La Rochelle, he was the first guy I spoke to, and I just asked him, you know, what's it like, and the first thing he said to me as well was, he was just like, it's long, but you're gonna love it. He's like, you're gonna love the people, you're gonna love the rugby. And same like Zach Holmes, I spent a year at the Force, and that's where I played with Zach Holmes, and he was another guy I spoke to. And Zachy also loved playing at La Rochelle. So when I told him could potentially be making the move to La Rochelle, first thing he said to me was like, oh, you won't regret it. Lovely place, you know, and the club's going in a great direction. So it was a conversation that I'd already made up my mind, but just speaking to those 2 guys, I was like, yeah, no, I'm all in now, I'm keen. And you know, coming over here, it's exactly the way that they described it. You know, I'm loving being in La Rochelle. I'm lucky that I've still got another 2 more seasons here. I got married just before I came over, so it was sort of just a fresh start in terms of everything. New rugby environment, new country, married life, and my wife's loving it as well. So you know that helps so much.
The 2 guys you mentioned there, like Zach and Cheslin, have both sort of reinvigorated their careers almost by moving to France. And I assume that was maybe something you had in mind as well. But Cheslin particularly, if he's kind of advising you come over to the top 14, he wasn't with the Springboks, was he, when he moved over? So you knew him so well back then. Was it obvious that he was going to break through and become the sort of global superstar that he is now? Or is it kind of do you think France kind of did that for him almost, or helped him in that way?
I think if you ask someone at the Stormers, the answer will be yes. We all knew he was going to be the player he is today. The thing that at the time, we had, I think it was maybe Brian Abena and JP Peterson on the wings, and they were, Brian's a phenomenal finisher, JP's big, strong runner. So the idea of having a guy of Cheslin's size on the wing wasn't seen as the next fit for the Springboks. But at the same time, he was killing it in Super Rugby, playing on the wing or at fullback predominantly. So we knew, as a Stormers group, we knew that this guy he was always going to be something special, no matter where he plays his rugby. And I think I don't know if he's mentioned it before, but at the time, he didn't even want to leave because he wanted to pursue the Springbok dream. But at the same time, it was also an opportunity for him to get himself in a different environment and hope that something comes of it, And the Cheslin, we knew at the Stormers, was a fantastic rugby player, nicest guy, an X-factor player that, second to none. Even in Super Rugby with your Australians and Kiwis running around, he was still the man that everyone paid attention to. So I think the fact that he came over to France, probably not as well known over here, he had the ability to just take the pressure off himself and just say, you know what, I'm just going to go out, play the rugby I know I can, and enjoy myself. And I think if you look at the first 2 seasons, that's exactly what he did. At Toulouse, he was phenomenal. I remember being back in Cape Town and just seeing clips of Cheslin running amok and thinking, shit, like this is what he did for us. So to see him doing it on the other side of the world is awesome. And I think it was always going to be hard to deny him or to keep him out of that Springbok squad. And once he got in, there was no one else who could top him. And I think the great thing about him is that even throughout all the recognition he's getting and the global superstar that he is today, he still remained the same guy. Like, I know how hardworking he is and how still so reserved he is, and the effort he puts into his game is almost as if he still has a point to prove, kind of thing.
And 10 Springbok caps to your name. Is there a part of you that misses it? Would you like to get back involved in the national setup? A World Cup coming up around the corner, would that be a dream of yours to try and work your way back in?
Yeah, I think that goal will never go away. I think for me personally, I know this is probably my last shot at it, because there's some great rugby players in South Africa at the moment, or outside backs, and so for me, I would really, see this as my big final push. And if I get the call, then great. I'll do whatever I need to once I'm in that environment again. But I think for me, the draw card of potentially being able to be in La Rochelle and create a bit of history with this club, for me, is at the moment a little bit bigger than going on to play for the Springboks. Simply because before the Lions series, there was a bit of chat from the coaches saying that I was there and thereabout. And then obviously once the squad got announced, I wasn't in. So it was another disappointment just after missing out on the World Cup as well. And I thought to myself, the one thing that I can do or continue to do is keep putting my hand up and playing well for La Rochelle and shift my focus to being the best I possibly can be for my club. And with anything, if I'm playing well and our team's winning and I'm in the championship side, that only pushes my pushes my case to be back in a Springbok squad. And I'd love to put on the jersey a couple more times. I went over in November for their end of year tour where they played at Murrayfield, and still good mates with some of the guys in the squad there. And after the game, I went to their hotel to have a beer with them, and just being around them, I was sort of just sitting there thinking to myself, like I know I can be here, and like I still want to be here. So yeah, that goal and that drive will never not be in me to say, I want to push on and hopefully still represent my country on a few more occasions. Yeah.
And you mentioned there was some conversation before the Lions tour. There's a lot of talk in England at the moment about Andre Esterhuizen coming back and playing for the Boks. He's having a phenomenal time. So we've spoken before about players coming over to Europe and reinvigorating their career. There's no longer that barrier in place where you have to have 30 caps like there was back a few years ago. And Jack Nienaber is having so-called sort of alignment camps for overseas players. He's obviously talking to players. So you mentioned you're definitely available and keen. When was the last conversation or chat you had with anyone internationally?
It's been a while. I check my phone just to make sure that my signal is working. But no, it's been a while. And to be fair though, like I haven't felt like I've been on the same sort of form that I was during last season. So I think that's got a bit to do with it. But at the same time, like I said, if I can just continue to play well for La Rochelle, and we are playing in games where, like the Champions Cup quarterfinal, and hopefully a semi where it's big games and I can perform and do the best I possibly can. Hopefully those performances can get the attention of the coaches back home. And I think that's what Andre Esterhuizen done. Literally, he was a guy we were sort of in the same position where he was there and thereabout leading up to the World Cup, and unfortunately didn't make it. Came to Quins and has been killing it ever since. So he's done his part in trying in getting himself back into the conversation. So that's all I need to focus on is continue to play well for my club and hopefully get the call. I'm pretty sure my orange is up and running at all times of the day. So hopefully I see I can continue playing well and see Jack Nienaber's name appear on my phone sometime.
I'm sure he's a big fan of the podcast, mate. So I'm sure once he hears this, tomorrow it's going to light up. I was going to ask you as well, you played junior rugby with Raymond Rule as well, who's with you at La Rochelle. Like you're capped together as well. So is there a part of you did you get a text? Like, have you had a WhatsApp? Like, do you compare? Do you talk about it together? Like, it must be an objective for both of you.
We often chat about it, and I think more so like because we got capped at the same time. We played in the 20s together, so I know Ray is also in a space where he's happy playing for La Rochelle and doing well with La Rochelle, and if the opportunity comes, he'll grab it again because he's one person that, and I don't think he minds me saying that, but I think he's one person that got a bit of or got treated badly at a time when South African rugby wasn't really doing well, and he copped a bit of flack there. So I think for him personally, I think he really wants to just get another opportunity to show everyone, you know what, it was one game, and it led to him being out of the squad and never seeing the jersey again. So I think for him, it's probably more of a case of hopefully getting the opportunity to show the world, you know what, I'm still the class player that I was when I put on the Springbok jersey.
And you mentioned how hugely disappointed you were before the last World Cup, that you were sort of just getting back in the mix. You got a cap again in 2019 and then just missed the cut. Was that the kind of switch that flicked that made you move to France? And if it was, I'm guessing there were loads of other offers on the table at the time. You may or may not be able to tell us what the other offers were.
Well, funny enough, like leading up to the World Cup, I had an offer from Quins, and I think Paul Gustard was the coach at the time, and I was speaking to him, and it was something that I considered doing or making the move. But yeah, at the same time, I was sort of just, you know, like I've just gotten myself back into the Springbok mix. The last thing I want to do now is run away. Well, not run away, but head off overseas, you know, and not be in the public eye every weekend. So looking back at it, it was great for me that I had the opportunity, but you know, pushing on to the World Cup and trying to make that squad, and then obviously not making the squad. It wasn't a case of there were no regrets in saying to Quins that I'm not going to come. I think you know, that the way rugby works out, I was then lucky enough to then just a couple of months after that get approached by La Rochelle, and you know, here I am now playing good rugby, good enough rugby to consider myself still being an option for the Springboks, you know. So I think when I didn't make the World Cup squad, I was disappointed because I felt at that time I was playing really good rugby. But then again, probably wasn't. If you look at the back three they had at the time at the World Cup, probably wasn't any better than the options they had. So it's something that only afterwards I got real with myself and said, you know what, like no rugby player goes onto the field saying, oh, this guy's better than me. But I think afterwards I sort of realized that maybe, like, yes, I was playing good rugby, but I wasn't playing great rugby that would get me into that squad. So at that time, I just decided, you know what, I've spent 6 seasons at the Stormers grinding away, and maybe a new environment, a change will bring something else out of me, and I think that's exactly what it's done.
The beaches and the weather are better at La Rochelle anyway, aren't they, Johnny?
I was going to say, the choice between Twickenham playing at the Stoop or living and playing your rugby in La Rochelle, it's a no-brainer, and it's worked out beautifully.
No, I tell you that I've got some mates who I went to school with who are working and living in London, and you know, sometimes when I speak to them, I'm like, oh, you know, it wouldn't have been a bad thing, but then, you know, I sit here in La Rochelle and the sun's still out at 9 o'clock, and I'm just like, nah, I'm pretty happy.
I'll take this. We'll settle here.
Yeah, we'll settle.
And so, like, again, going back to your under-20s group, I wanted to ask you about Juan Liebenberg as well, because you came through with Raymond Rule, Juan Liebenberg, he was your captain. How bizarre has it been to go through playing your under-20s rugby and then end up 3 mates on the other side of the world, on the west coast of France, playing for La Rochelle, who were in Pro D2 7-8 years ago, and having this incredible experience together in terms of adventure, like a life adventure, doing it with some of your mates that you played youth rugby with. It must be incredible.
It's crazy. Like we often speak about it, just saying, like, because obviously Paul Willemse was in our 20 squad as well, and you know, so we're like, it's crazy how so many of us are over here now, like the 3 of us obviously playing at the same club. It's just crazy to think that, like, as a 20-year-old, like you've just won the Junior World Cup and you think to yourself, oh man, this is great. I don't think it can get any better than this. And then you go on, and a couple of years later, you find yourself in La Rochelle playing with the same guys, you know. And it's like the funny thing is, I was speaking to Raymond, and I told him, I was like, I just signed at La Rochelle. Like, I'm coming over to France. We need to make a plan and catch up. And he called me and he was like, are you serious? Are you going to La Rochelle? And I was like, yeah, I've just signed. Like, how's Grenoble? And he's like, no, Grenoble's good, but I'll see you in the locker room at La Rochelle. And I was like, what? And he's like, no, I've just signed as well. So like, we just sat back and laughed, and we were like, we played 20s together. He spent a season at the Stormers before coming over here. So we played at the Stormers together. And now to be here in France, in La Rochelle, with Ray and with Vian, it's incredible. Like, we often just sit in the locker room and speak Afrikaans to each other, which is great. So we don't.
Everyone else is hating it. I can guarantee you. Those the Saffers.
We don't lose that side of us. But no, it's man, it's incredible.
You guys are only 29, but Vian is retiring at the end of the season. So how much did that take you by surprise? You're not that old.
Yeah, it was. Like, I remember when he told us, like, I'd heard whispers of it, and then I was like, nah, this can't be true. Like, I'm not thinking of retirement, so why should Vian be thinking of retirement, you know? And then when I asked him, and he was just like, yeah, like, I've done what I feel like I can do in the game, and I'm happy right now making this decision. And credit to him, you know. I think he's like, if you look at the way he plays, he just has no regard for his body at all. So I think, you know, if you had opened this podcast asking Vian how his body was doing, you would have had a completely different answer than the one I gave you. And like, you just, every training session, he's 100% full on, you know. Like, even today, we were joking with him. We were like, after training, like, oh guys, just watch out. Vian's played his game today again, because he just goes 100% in training. His wife is his wife's family is South African, but she was born here in France. So they're going back to Montpellier, where he's put some things in place for himself to make the transition from a pro rugby player into business life pretty simple, you know. And I think it's something that, at the time when he spoke to me about it, I was sort of thinking, you know, this is great, you know. At 29 years old, the guy's saying, you know what, I'm done. I've had enough. Happy to let the game go. You know, it's inspiring, but also, you know, like, still very surprised, because I just love the game too much to be like, oh, I'm done after the end of the season. You know, that's it. Thanks, Rog. Thanks, La Rochelle. Like, I still want to go on. You know, for me, you know, like I say, the biggest thing is, like, I want to leave having created history at the club, having won trophies. You know, so that's still a big driving force for me, and I think for Vian as well. But I think at the same time, he's also just so happy and content with where he is as a human being outside of the game, to be able to say, you know what, I've done what I can, and that's it for me.
And there's not many of us that are brave enough or smart enough to do that. Like, most of us want to drag our carcasses until somebody says, Johnny, could you just stop? Which in the end inevitably is what happens.
Rule. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Rule.
We're from the same school.
Yeah, Ray's saying that he'll go from top 14. Then if someone in top 14 says, look, Ray, you're not cutting it, then he'll say, okay, Pro D2. He'll go to Pro D2, and if they're like, look, Ray, that's not you anymore, he'll go Fed 1, and he's like, he'll go national. He's like, I just want to play, man.
Hey, Johnny, you could be playing with him, Johnny. We spoke about this last week, coming out of retirement for Fed 1.
I couldn't. Ray is actually a good athlete who is talented and gifted. I am hacked up, old, washed up, and past it. Let's just accept it. Another man like that's nowhere near that stage, Victor Vito. Let's talk about somebody else announced, another smart man that said he's hanging it up at the end of the year. Is there added motivation to win something? A personal note you mentioned, but in a team perspective for these guys that are around you that you've grown up with, you've watched, you've had teammates that have become leaders. For guys like Vic or for guys like Vayan, is there added motivation for you to win something for them so they finish on a sweet note and you finish with a trophy together?
Yeah, 100%. That's something that's talked about as well. And Vic always says to us, you know, boys, when I left the Canes, he won the Super Rugby final in his 100th game for the Canes, and he's like, I think it's written in the stars for me. So when he said to us, you know, he's gonna call it a day, I think he was also saying, like, you know what, you guys better send me off on a good note here. But no, Vic is, you know, like exactly like Vian, an incredible guy who just, I think for me personally, just opened my eyes to so much more. And like, you know, just sitting in between meetings or training sessions, listening to the things he talks about, the conversations he has, it's incredible. You know, same like TKB, these guys who are World Cup winners, Super Rugby champions, and they come over here, and it's not a case of I've done what I have to, and I'm happy to sort of go along with the flow. They just add so much value to whatever we're doing, whether it's in meetings, like training sessions. Like Tawera is probably the nicest guy, but on the field, he's the ultimate competitor. Like if I'm not chasing a box kick hard enough, he's getting on me in training. He's like, Dol, you could have got there. He doesn't want, like, he's the type of guy where he doesn't want anyone in his position to think that, oh, I've got the chance to be better than T. You know, he drives the standards at training. Like, he gets on like guys like Wingy and Will. If they're not giving him good lines, like off 9, he's like, bro, you need to be better. And like the same with Vic. Like when it comes to like our short side attack, if I'm not owning the space there, Vic's always on me. Like, Dol, come on, like you need to do this, do that. Or like we're in the line outs, you know. It's, and I think hopefully the younger guys in and around those players pick up on it, and it's something that once, you know, like once Vic is gone now, that there's someone else step in and take on that role, you know. So I think just back to Vic, I think he's, you know, he's a phenomenal rugby player. We all know that, but the thing that's sort of surprised me the most is just the type of guy he is, you know, whether it's with the families or, you know, us foreign players coming over here. He's just been like the caretaker of everyone, making sure we're all comfortable, and we all know that, you know, he's a phone call away if you need anything, whether it's to do with rugby or not, you know. So that's something that's like really, really great, and something that the boys all look up to and appreciate.
And back to the present, Johnny mentioned wanting to send him off on a high with a trophy. You've obviously got to win this weekend if it's going to be the Champions Cup trophy. So you mentioned you've done the review sessions. You've had Vian Liebenberg throwing himself about in training on a Tuesday, knocking boys about. In terms of looking forward about Montpellier, you obviously know them very well from playing them loads in the top 14. Without giving the game plan away, what are you expecting? What's the focus?
Montpellier is a really tough side, very, very organized in the way they do things. I think we also just realized a couple of days ago that over the last 2 seasons we've played them, we've only beaten them once. So it's by no means a game that we sort of feel we favorites going into it. I think they're a really quality outfit, and they've shown that, you know, no team puts points on Quins like that, the way they did, home and away. And so for us, I think it's sort of keeping a bit of that frustration and disappointment from the Toulouse loss, and sort of just being back at home is a big bonus for us as well. So it's a lot to do with how we approach the games in terms of our set piece and our execution on that. I think, you know, that was the big focus today for us. So we know they're quality outfit on D, and I think the big thing, you know, for us is we want to give the ball some air. whether it's in top 14 or Champions Cup. You know, that's the way we see our identity and our brand of rugby. But at the same time, also knowing that, you know, Montpellier is an outfit that if you're just going to throw the ball around willy-nilly, they're going to punish you. And, you know, we know the likes of Zach Mercer and Gabisi and Pollard, you know, those are quality rugby players. So I think it's going to be a great game. The weather looks good here in La Rochelle, so hopefully it stays this way. And we'll hopefully be able to get a good 80-minute performance in.
Well, good luck this weekend.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
We know you've signed up for the next couple of years at least in La Rochelle, so you're obviously loving life there. And we'll clip that little bit up for Jacques Nienaber and send it over. So good luck with that as
well. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
Best luck this weekend, mate. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks very much, guys. Cheers.
Interesting again there. Another international career that we're hoping to resurrect.
We're doing our best. We're doing our best, mate.
And also fascinating that he could have ended up at Quins, but hey, France, better weather.
He made the right choice, didn't he, in the end? Work-life balance, down the beach, sun on your back, what's not to like? I think also the international rugby piece will be a real interest to him because you'll have seen Will Skelton be out in the wilderness and not do it, and then a slight rule change, you're in form and you go and get picked, and that's it in a nutshell. But the rugby he's playing in that backline set up by O'Gara, he's quality every single week. They operate at such a high level, and he could fit straight back into the Springbok setup. I mean, the guy is a phenomenon.
And he mentioned that they've had a few defeats to Montpellier recently, and they're not seeing themselves as favourites for this game. But from the outside, obviously, because they're at home, most people are seeing them as big favourites. What do you reckon?
I think there's a few different parts to it that have only come to light in the past 2 weeks. Like I would say Montpellier have come heavily back into form. Some of their players have been outstanding. Some of that key personnel has been injured and operated on in the past 3-4 weeks. So Kobus Reinach has had a shoulder reconstruction. He's going to miss the tail end of the season. That's a big loss. Like Montpellier kick more than most teams in the top 14. They're very effective, but he's integral to that because there's quality and precision with his kicking. Paul Valemse, it looks like he's done either his ACL or something bad knee-wise. So it looks like he's going to get in the operation. He's been massive for them and for the French side. I mean, he has been just ridiculous physically. Mohamed Was as well. He got sent off for the weekend. He's got a disciplinary to go through. So there's a few key men that might be falling out at the final hurdle for the club, which is a real shame after the season they've had. But I think this weekend, if those three key men are missing, La Rochelle at home with a backline and a pack that are both terrific. I would also say La Rochelle are favourites this weekend.
Before we chat about the other Champions Cup quarterfinals, summer's coming, isn't it, Johnny? And we've got the listeners sorted with some beers, haven't we?
Summer is coming, and we have sorted them, Tim. We have. And beers that I first tried in a Murrayfield car park, which sounds dodgy, but these beers aren't dodgy. They're actually very, very good. And put simply, no hangover afterwards, great tasting beer. And I, as a 36-year-old who now gets stinking hangovers, can actually enjoy them. And my wife speaks to me after I've had them. So I'm a big, big fan.
Yeah, Days is a new breed of alcohol-free beer created for those who want to do more. Proudly brewed in Johnny's native Scotland using locally sourced ingredients, their beers are 0.0% ABV and low calorie as well. And they're now a B Corp certified company committing 2% of all sales to charities that empower fresh thinking towards mental health. Brewed for good times, good days, and good tomorrows. You can enjoy all the great moments associated with a cold beer just without the side effects. And with over 700 5-star reviews, it tastes great too. So just head over to daysbrewing.com and use the code RugbyPass15 to get 15% off a case. Right, so Toulouse going to Munster. It's a European heavyweight clash, if ever there was one, but it's at the Aviva as opposed to Thomond Park. We mentioned this before. Ed Sheeran's got in the way a bit. How do you see it going? Because does that take away from the home advantage? Does it matter? Who's the favourite in that one?
I think it will be very, very tight. Thinking back to the last knockout game that Toulouse actually beat them over there, the performance, the levels they had to go to individually were colossal. You think back to Julien Marchand, Dupont, and Tamac, how they all stood up. Some of the footwork by Mathis Labelle, like skinning JJ Hanner. I mean, it was one of their perfect performances against a non-crowd. There was nobody in the stadium. So how much is that going to affect them to the Aviva? Although it's not a Munster crowd, it's still going to be a massive Irish crowd. Travelling support is going to be all in their favour. But you've got 9 Grand Slam winners. You've got quality throughout. You've got confidence, I think, slowly seeping back into their squad, especially after that big win against the gnarly La Rochelle side at the weekend. So a huge test, but you wouldn't bet against them. I think in terms of personnel, what they've got in their squad, they can go over and do a job. They'll be disappointed to miss out on Ed Sheeran, but I genuinely believe that they can go over there. And I don't look at the bookies. I don't follow. I think possibly people might place Munster favourites at home with a big crowd, but no, I think Toulouse have got enough within their squad to go over there and turn Munster over.
Racing host Sale at the La Défense Arena on Sunday. So are they going to make it 3 French sides in the semi-finals? Most people are assuming they are, but what do you think?
I think this is potentially the toughest one to call. I'll be there with Channel 4. Racing clearly will be desperate to make another final and to make amends for lost finals. They've been in this situation recently and not quite got over the line. Sale have never made a semi in the Champions Cup. So again, historic for them if they make it. And yeah, I find this one the hardest one to unpack. I think one of the key elements that if you'd asked me about this clash 3 months ago, Racing would have lost it purely because they didn't have a scrum. The fact that they brought in Nyakane, he stabilised the Racing pack. If they're given a proper platform, Russell, Vakatawa and Fiku can have a field day. But I think it'll be really close. I think it'll be much closer than people think. But yeah, I do think Racing will win, but I don't think it's going to be a massive margin, not by any stretch.
And one of the keys, it'll be interesting, but Sale's disciplinary record is not good at the moment. They give away a lot of penalties. So if they do, Racing will capitalise, surely.
They will. I mean, that being said, Racing, the last game out in this competition against Stade, I remember Finn debriefing the game and just saying, look, we made something like 8 line breaks. We managed to capitalise on 1. So they haven't been happy with the way they've been playing. That being said, they were terrific against Post. So like the roller coaster continues, but this is it now. It's knockout rugby, sink or swim, and they're going to have to perform. They're back at home. I've never been in the arena. I'm really excited to get up there. Apparently the bar is right next to the field, which I've never, apparently you can take a beer essentially to the dugout and enjoy the game. So really looking forward to being there in person, enjoying it. But yeah, massive game for Racing. And again, you have to think it's not, you think back to years past of your Dan Carters, your Chris Massoys, this is a different side. What I enjoy now about Racing is the different face they have to the side, the young French element, guys like Tanga, the number 8, Diallo, back row, the physicality and the edge they bring. It's a real French-English clash that I'm looking forward to watching unfold. But no, I think Racing will have enough to get over the line and get themselves through to another semi.
And when do you fly back from Paris? Because forget Ed Sheeran, it turns into a nightclub after this, doesn't it?
It's straight after. I'm gutted. I'm straight back on the plane, back down to Biarritz, back to work on Monday morning, unfortunately.
And a quick word on the only one without a French team involved, Leinster. Who's making it through there?
Honestly, don't have a scoop.
Flip of a coin.
Mate, they're both exceptional. You've Leinster with a pedigree that have been exceptional in this tournament for donkey's years. You've got Leicester, who have been very poor past 4 or 5 seasons, but now seem to be clicking. Weirdly, I'm almost looking forward to watching that game the most from a completely different non-French perspective. 2 sides with real history in the competition. And again, they've had some phenomenal battles in the past. So different era, different teams going at it. I'm going to go Leinster just because they're a juggernaut, but Leicester have been sensational as well so far this season. I'm going to go Leinster just because they've been here before, they've done it, they're confident. But I'll probably be proved wrong, let's be honest.
We will see. Can't wait for all 4 of those quarterfinals. Thanks, Johnny. A big thanks to Dillyn Leyds for joining us. And thanks to all you guys for listening as well. Make sure you hit subscribe, leave us a nice review if you can as well. Check us out on RugbyPass and on YouTube. And we'll be back with another episode next week. Au revoir, Johnny.
Cheers, Tim.